Good evening and welcome to the October 20th, 2020 Guilderland Central School District Board of Education meeting. Would you all please silence your cell phones and stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And so first on the agenda tonight we have school board recognition, so I'll turn it to Dr. Wiles.
Thank you so much. And the message here is thank you so much. This week is dedicated to recognizing the many volunteers who work on behalf of our children and our community as school board members. And so tonight we'd like to recognize our 9 members of the Board of Education for all of the time and effort and work you put into helping us keep this ship going in the right direction. I have a proclamation from the governor that I'll share, but before I do, just for the community, I want to share with everyone our lovely, I think, tradition of how we recognize our board members here in Guilderland. It's a lasting way to keep our board members' work alive in our school district through our libraries. So each year, we designate board members to serve as liaisons to our school buildings. And when this portion of the year comes along, our building principals and our librarians work together to pick out a book that they feel fits all of you or each of you just right. And they purchase the book and you get to spend a little bit of time with it tonight. And you'll notice inside there's a seal with your name. And after you've enjoyed the book, we return it and we put it in our library. And then really generations of students going forward will borrow the books and see your name, and you will have made a real mark on them in a very tangible way. Of course, you make many, many, many differences in their lives in thousands of other ways as well. So I want to thank you for your service and your support, and it's just wonderful to work with all of you. I'll share with you what the governor has said, because he does write a nice message recognizing, you know, the tremendous amount of time and energy that everyone puts into this important work. So his proclamation reads, whereas each school year, School Board Recognition Week is observed by the more than 700 school boards in school districts throughout the Empire State, and whereas our state's public education system is designed to meet the educational needs of all children and to empower them to become competent, productive contributors to society in an ever-changing world, and whereas school boards are currently facing the unprecedented challenges of a pandemic while working closely with educators to prepare our children to learn, and whereas members of local school boards are dedicated to children, learning, and community, and devote many hours of service to elementary and secondary public education as they continually strive for improvement, excellence, and progress in education, recognizing that all children can be successful learners, especially when education is tailored to the individual needs of the child. And whereas local school board members are strong advocates for public education and are responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations to the district by working closely with parents, educational professionals, and other community members. And whereas the members of New York State's local school boards respond to the educational needs of the communities they serve and help ensure the solid foundation of our school system. In doing so,
press 1 to connect your phone audio to your video.
In so doing, the strengths of our educational system and improve future prospects for our children. And whereas during October 19th through 23rd, 2020, special activities and programs will be held in communities across New York State in observance of School Board Recognition Week, and it is fitting to join in acknowledging the commitment and contributions of members of our local school boards. Now, therefore, I, Andrew M. Cuomo, Governor of the State of New York, do hereby proclaim October 19th through 23rd, 2020 as School Board Recognition Week in the Empire State. And I think we should give our school board members here today a round of applause. Enjoy your books.
to have more than a day?
You can have more than a day.
Oh, that's a big one. Thank you, Dr. Wiles. Next, we have public comment, and we have a few public comments. I'm going to read the one that we got. We have a few in email and one, I think, on a phone call. So I'll start with one of the emails. This is from Janet LeBeau. Thank you for the opportunity to present my concerns to the board this evening. My grandson, Tyler Whittam, is a 6th grade student at Farnsworth. He is on the autism spectrum and has been in an integrated classroom. Although his exit IEP at Altamont recommended that this be continued, notice was received that, upon transfer to Farnsworth, he'd be reassigned to a self-contained classroom. We immediately disagreed, resulting in the school's proposal for an 8-week trial period. I was under the impression that, although school was virtual during the pandemic, that instruction continued as a regular full-day session, only to discover that at least a 4-month period it was half an hour per day. I felt Tyler was doomed to fail. I contacted Altamont. Immediately, his special ed teacher and his TA volunteered to tutor Tyler after his attendance to the suggested extended year school session. Recently, Tyler had not 1 but 2 non-COVID absences. It has been reported that 150,000 people are being tested daily in New York State. This second absence, my daughter lost 3 days' work trying to get him tested, only to be told to return the next day, and the next long, and the next. The normal 3 to 5 days for results took too much longer. After each negative result, you must obtain a telemed appointment with your doctor, who generates the necessary approval letter to return to school. Instead of missing 2 to 3 days, Tyler was forced to miss 11 days at a very critical time. During these absences, I contacted his special ed teacher and the chair of special ed, asking if someone would be interested in tutoring Tyler to make up classes and I'd pay for their services. I was told that no one was available. I then asked if Tyler could attend virtually and was told there were only 2 options: attend in person, which is a special ed student Tyler would be required to do to obtain the other special services, or virtually, and that no combination was provided. Tyler, and I'm sure many others, are victims of COVID and the non-existence of a contingency plan for an unseen extended absence beyond one's control. I know these are stressful times and that no precedents existed, but what happens if the number of positive cases increases and you are forced to close 1 or more schools? Apparently, the plan is to go all remote, then and only then. We have an email, and this is from Roxanne Welch. Board of Ed, hi. I think that as educator during a pandemic, the message was sent by the assistant superintendent regarding K-6 absences on Friday really misses the mark. It is illogical, especially from an educator's perspective, that kids who have potentially been exposed to COVID and need to quarantine be treated the same as normal absence pre-COVID, because these 2 things are not the same and should not be compared as such. Gilderland School District should be doing everything possible to continue education and not cause any further gaps in the students' education, especially with the spring educational plan that was comprised of subpar pre-recorded lessons. Parents who have made the very difficult decision to send their kids to school should not have received such a message without proper guideline or thought of how to continue education if quarantine is necessary. This is a new situation for all involved, and I do believe the district is doing their best. There obviously needs to be a better plan in place for when a student has to quarantine instead of no remote learning and treated like a normal absence when it is not, and a significant longer absence than under normal circumstances. Thanks, Roxanne Welch. And I have another public comment. 1 second. This is from Olivia Chadwick. Dear Board of Education, we are the student voice anti-racism community. This summer, we started our work in making our school a better environment. We have done anti-racist work, including student voice forums, setting up the Anti-Racist Ally Program, and hosting the Moment of Silence. Our group is made up of students and teachers working together to represent everyone and make our school a safe place. We want to address the comments made by the book stamped by Ibram Kendi and Jason Reynolds. Something that was brought up the last meeting was that the book doesn't have a hero, but the reason that there are no heroes is because they have been exposed. These heroes that we students have grown up learning about aren't heroes. They are segregationists and assimilationists that have only been shown in the best light. This book doesn't need a hero because historical figures such as Thomas Jefferson doesn't deserve that title. We as a school community need to show we don't blindly stand behind flawed historical figures. By continuing to teach that important figures are heroes, we are neglecting the more important history or the minorities that struggled due to their hand. This is denying people of color in this country their history and their acknowledgement of their struggles. The book Stamped is an important addition to our curriculum because it teaches important parts of history and provides sides of the story from people of color that have historically been missing from history classes and textbooks that focus on a white perspective and narrative of events. Another comment brought up was that the book was a downer and shed too much of a negative light. We shouldn't always focus on what is wrong in history, but these hard topics are necessary to learn about. The purpose of teaching history is to prevent it from repeating itself. If we don't fully understand what happened in our world, how can we work to prevent things from happening again? These difficult talking points and controversial issues are what will spur critical thinking and help students form ideas for themselves. We need to have conversations about uncomfortable topics. As a student, talking about these topics and ideas helps us form our own ideas in the world. When a teacher leads that discussion, it opens my eyes to other people's opinions and views. Stamped is a book that will help us approach and discuss these controversial and uncomfortable topics. We need to show that issues of racism aren't taboo. They are as much a part of history as anything else. We wouldn't be here today if not for history, and history is most often written by the victors. Not to say every account is like that, but it is known there are several instances where credit is not given where it is due. This is the assimilationist curriculum in action. In American history, it can be trivial things like how Paul Revere had help warning that the British were coming, all the way to the fact that slavery wasn't confined to the South. These key details are conveniently left out of stories, details that can make the foggy mirror of history a little clearer. The book Stamped provides a new perspective that is going to provide students a more comprehensive understanding of history. At the end of the day, racism cannot be understood by looking at it from one side. The perspective provided by Kendi and Reynolds will allow for deeper conversations using critical thinking we've been taught all along. The perceived notion of a lack of critical thinking is connected to the required assimilationist curriculum. The curriculum at times lacks modern problems for students to discuss. They contain stories in which they glorify the hero, just goes to show how Stamped is a perfect contrast. It depicts these so-called heroes and situations in a new light, allowing students to see racism in its entirety. After all, there should be room for both sides. Sincerely, students from the Student Voice Anti-Racism Committee. Okay, and we have one more public comment, and this will be by telephone.
Yes, this will be Karen Lewis, and I need to call her, so. Hello, is this Mrs. Lewis? Hi there. Sure, this is Marie Wiles. We are in our board meeting and during our public comment. So if you are ready, I can put you on speaker and you can make your comments to the Board of Education. Are you ready? Oh, okay, hold on. Okay, Mrs. Lewis, so we're all set.
Hi, my name is Karen Lewis, and I am the parent of a student in 11th grade. And I am a black woman, black mother of a biracial student. And I just happened to be listening to the board meeting from, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. And while I'm glad that you accepted Stamped as part of the ELA curriculum, I was very disappointed and disheartened to hear the comments made opposing the book. When I think of controversial books that I read as a high schooler 40 years ago, books such as The Jungle, or even earlier, To Kill a Mockingbird, having those kind of cultural issues written in books discussed, I think would enhance critical thinking and also be culturally responsive to the diversity that Guilderland is experiencing and that we are witnessing through the civil rights protests that have been currently ongoing since the murder of George Floyd. So it provides an opportunity for maybe not the typical standard literature that students can engage and appreciate different perspectives. I was really disheartened to hear about the misunderstanding about crime in Chicago. And I would be happy to correct that assumption that blacks commit 80% of the crime in Chicago. And also, I think the misunderstanding between the segregation, assimilation, and anti-racist view. I think that there's some misunderstandings that I would recommend or propose that the board itself there's a lot of literature, there are organizations that can give you more information so that maybe you'll be more educated about the anti-racist lens. And because it was disheartening to hear that the book was perceived as anti-white. It's not. It just shows you a different lens. And it's a common lens that if you were familiar with Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and there are many other, including my great-grandfather, that were anti-racist activists from back in the 20s and 30s. So you may not be familiar with it, but it's been out there, and there's a lot of literature and study and research about it. I am happy that these discussions are happening because I think it's important, but I really would challenge you to to avail yourself of the current literature that's out there that's from an anti-racist lens. It's totally not what you think, or at least what I heard you think about it being anti-white. Also, some of the, what I call racist myths about black-on-black crime, black people commit more crime in Chicago versus represented in the criminal. I think you need to know what the actual data shows, because you wouldn't be making those comments. And those comments, and kind of to summarize, they make me uncomfortable having my child in your care. And I know that that's not in your intention to make me uncomfortable or make me not trust that you are able to adequately advocate and provide and even review literature or curriculum that's culturally responsive and sensitive to the diverse community that you serve. But I would like to challenge you to do better. And there are a lot of resources out there. I think you actually have an excellent student group, and I loved hearing their comments. That made me very happy and proud. But I would like the board to also do better. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Lewis.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Do we have any more emails, Linda, that came in? No. Okay. Before moving on with the rest of the agenda, I just wanted to comment on our board discussion during the last meeting around the book Stamped. First, I want to thank the Anti-Racism Committee at the high school for their thoughtful letter to the Board of Ed. As a board who just voted to prioritize equity and diversity, we are grateful for all of their work. We appreciate their commitment to their profession and to all of their students. Thank you. While some of the discussion in the last meeting was hard to hear and accept, I did want to make it clear, and I hope I can speak for the whole board when I say that we know critical thinking is happening throughout our schools. Thank you to our teachers for inspiring students to practice thinking critically on their own. This year, more than ever, our teachers deserve to be recognized and appreciated. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the consent items, which includes the minutes from the October 6th meeting, the CPSE and CSE recommendations, personnel action, and financials 1 through 4. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Barb? Second, Judy? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you. Next, for information items, curriculum and instruction, Dr. Singleton?
Thank you. Just a reminder that November 3rd is the next scheduled Superintendent's Conference Day for the district, which of course means that our students will not be reporting on that day, either in person or remotely. Our plans for the day will balance the unique challenges of teaching and learning during this unprecedented school year with our goals to provide an equitable and inclusive school community for all. The morning sessions will feature Dr. Stacy Williams, who of course was scheduled to be here last March but was unable to for obvious and known reasons. She is from Marist College. Dr. Williams will present sessions focused on racial trauma and the impacts on student learning and wellness. She will present virtually and will be available for in-depth follow-up collaborations with our staff. Additionally, faculty and staff will select from several related sessions facilitated by our own district staff. And they include name pronunciation, the critical importance of names and traditions of naming, facilitating courageous and controversial conversations, examining shared values, and center the voices of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. The afternoon will provide all teachers and staff opportunities and time to develop individual and differentiated learning plans. They may continue with a focus on equity and diversity, or they may select from a variety of opportunities to strengthen their integration and use of technologies for enhanced remote instruction. Additionally, time will be provided for focused collaborations and independent work. And my second item, Gilderland High School, just a reminder, was designated as a No Place for Hate school last year and continues their efforts to become a more welcoming community for all. This year, they are participating together in the Anti-Defamation League Walk Against Hate. The 2020 Anti-Defamation League Walk Against Hate invites individuals, families, friends, colleagues, teammates, and communities from across the country to get creative in how they walk. We look forward to participating and joining the ADL to speak up, share facts, and show strength in fighting bias, bigotry, and bullying wherever it may appear. And this year's walk was held between October 12th and 18th, and by latest count, I believe the freshman class was winning the competition for participation in the ADL Walk Against Hate. So, good job, freshman class. And my last item is really just an update on the status of remote learning in our district. We have been monitoring the trends in participation in remote class sections. The attached chart shows some fluctuation as parents and families consider the best instructional model for their child, and we of course will continue to monitor any changes in enrollment as we head into the fall and winter months. And if you take a look at the data, you will see that we did see a bit of an increase in the number of students who were learning remotely, and that occurred right around the 1st of October. Barbara and I actually had a conversation earlier tonight about what may have caused that increase in the number of students who are going remote or preferring to learn remotely. And when you think about the timing of that bump, it was right around the time that we had the cases confirmed in one of our elementary schools. So I do think that is an impetus for some of the shifts that we saw. I think parents and families are monitoring the situation in our county pretty closely and making some decisions based on what they're observing in regional trends as well. It is starting to creep back down a bit, so the data goes up until October 9th, but we of course will continue to monitor that, and if I had a crystal ball, I would say we're going to see some ups and downs throughout the course of the year. I think that's fairly inevitable at this point. But related to this, I also wanted to just give a reminder to the board and to the community that we will be asking parents to make a decision for the second semester of the school year, and we will be doing so in the coming weeks. It is of tremendous importance that we know what the plans are for our students, because we obviously have to rebuild the school year, essentially, on the fly, which is going to be extremely difficult to do. We want to be as not disruptive as we possibly can to those existing class sections, but if the shifts are significant, we may well have to make some changes in the middle of the school year. So stay tuned, but that will be coming within the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you, Demian.
You're welcome.
Next, we have school business information. Neil?
Thank you, Seema. I have one item this evening, and it's an enrollment update. So on the first Wednesday of each October, which would be October 7th this year, school districts across the state collect a variety of basic educational data to share with the State Education Department. Among these data are totals of students who are enrolled in each of our school buildings. This year, there are 4,824 students enrolled in our K-12 programs. That's 32 students less than last year, and 116 students lower than projected during the budget development process. And just by level, the changes over last year's enrollment are as follows. So at the elementary, we have 31 less students. At the middle school, we have 25 more students. And at the high school, we have 26 less students. The district also has fiscal educational responsibility for students who reside in our school district but are not actually enrolled in the district. These students are in a variety of programs, including BOCES programs, private placements, alternative placements, such as Tech Valley and alternative education, and charter schools. There are 89 such students, and that's a decrease of 2 students over the prior year. And then finally, housed in our buildings are another 76 students from other school districts attending BOCES classes at Pine Bush, Westmere, Farnsworth Middle School, and Guilderland High School. Those students are not included in the counts above. A total of 12 district classrooms are rented to service these students.
Thank you, Neil. Next, superintendent information. Dr. Wiles?
Thank you. My first item, this appears to be the month of recognizing school-related folks. October is National Principals Month. So from the National Association of Secondary School Principals, the National Association of Elementary School Principals, and the American Federation of School Administrators, they say each October National Principals Month recognizes the essential role that principals play in making a school great. Principals are among the hardest working, yet often least recognized individuals in education. Principals set the academic tone for their schools, and it is their vision, dedication, and determination that provide the mobilizing force for achieving student success. So tonight I would like to recognize and thank all of our building principals, our assistant principals, and house principals for their tireless work and their commitment to our students, faculty, staff, and families. They truly are a hardworking group, and I should say they're all saddened not to be here tonight to hand deliver the books to all of you, but we thought as we're keeping in-person attendance here as low as we can, they could not. I would be remiss, though, not to mention our other administrative team members. We have instructional administrators and also who are probably in assistant superintendents who don't get a month. But they also do tremendous work to support our students, to support our teachers and their good work, and to be good liaisons across the district and to our families. So thank you to all of you who work so hard. Good job. And then my second item tonight, I just want to let everyone know about 2 thought exchanges that are happening this week. The first one is actually already released, and it's to our faculty and staff. And this is a thought exchange that's basically recognizing we've been in these buildings for 6 weeks. And how are things going? What's working well? Where do you need some more support? So we've got quite a bit of activity in that exchange going on right now. It's going to stay open through Monday. We're going to be using some of that information to inform our conference day, the fine-tuning of our conference day, but also as we're thinking about planning for the second half of the school year. The second exchange is similar, but it's going to go to families. We're going to send it out tomorrow, and it's basically we'll ask a similar question after having your children in our buildings, actually in our buildings for 6 weeks. What's working for you, and what are some areas that need some more work, that need some more support? Again, that will be used to help us plan for second semester. Our goal here is to share this data with all of you. It's the November 10th Board of Education meeting. That's a typo there. So you have a sense of kind of how our community is feeling overall about how things are going so far. You know, as Demian alluded, we are going to be recreating this whole thing again soon. And if there are things we need to think about differently, we just as soon know it sooner rather than later. So we'll very much appreciate everyone's participation. And so far, at least with the faculty and staff, it's been, you know, visited often, so that's good.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wiles. Next, Board President information. I have 2 items. The first is the Equity and Diversity Committee update. And I'll say the Board of Ed is seeking letters of interest from school community stakeholders, students, faculty, staff, parents, community members, to be considered for membership on the newly established Equity and Diversity Committee. The Communications Committee has been asked to work on a letter and plan to reach out to those groups and will report on their efforts during the committee reports portion of this evening's agenda. So we'll have more of an update from Gloria later this evening. And then the next is the NYSBA voting delegate guide. I think we have 7 responses here in the surveys, and Barb, you're our rep, correct? Did you have any things that you wanted to, I don't know if you got a chance to look at the responses.
Most of them were pretty consistent for the ones that were recommended by NYSBA, but on those that are not recommended, number 22 seemed to be a tie between the yeses and the nos. And it was the school district would be held harmless for employee and retiree health insurance increases. And the committee argued that if that were the case, a lot of the money that would go to fill that gap wouldn't be available for programming for the kids. So that was their reasoning. So I don't know if anybody felt very, very strongly about that, but, you know, we could go into that. The other one, where there was an overwhelming yes, was a requirement for tenure to be renewed every 5 years. And that had a 57% okay. What the committee pointed out, however, why they didn't go with it, they felt that it would be very burdensome administratively, you know, to do this every 5 years, and that it potentially could result in a lot more costly 3020A hearings. But that one, as I said, had a real high percentage of people that wanted us to support that. So anybody, you know, felt strongly one way, they want to speak up, that would be great. The other one that had a 71% yes on our part was mandated reporter training would be required periodically. And what the committee that reviewed these pointed out is that, number one, it'd be an unfunded mandate, which the state loves to throw out at us. And the fact is that a district on its own can do this every year, they can do it every 2 years, whatever they feel, you know, the group requires, if you have a lot of new teachers or whatever. So that's why they voted no, but in our case, you know, we had a big group of people that, you know, thought that we should require it. So if you want me to go with the vote, I will, but I just wanted to share the reasoning against, you know, those recommendations and why they were there. If anybody wants to lobby for them, I'd be glad to hear it.
Ben?
Well, you know, I don't want to speak to those, but the other one I would point out is Resolution 8 failed to receive, you know, more than 50% on any of the answers, and that's the one about charter schools. You know, and to that, I would just say, you know, charter schools are public schools, and it's really not the child's fault if they're in a struggling school district. It's not the child's fault if the state's not funding the school district. there are districts like Rochester which are just imploding before your eyes. I think last time I checked the statistics, which was probably already 2 years ago, 8% of students were proficient on ELA and math tests, 3 through 8. So, that's a very struggling school district. It's not helped by the fact that Rochester and the surrounding communities are one of the hottest markets for charter schools. But that being said, what are all the students in those schools supposed to do? Just ride it out. So, again, we didn't really reach a majority on that question. So, for the 28% who are undecided, I would just submit that, and also mention that the most recent Real Clear opinion poll in the United States showed 77% support for school choice. So.
Seema.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rebecca?
I just wanted to comment on the mandated reporter line, Barb. My personal opinion would be that we would support that, and I totally understand that it's an unfunded mandate, but the majority of hotline reports in New York State come from school officials, either teachers or administrators, and the more education we can have in that regard would be good. There's a lot of inexpensive training programs for mandated reporting training, so I would just be in support of it.
Any other comments? Barb, did you have any ones that you were waiting to hear
No,
either way?
Those are the main discrepancy ones.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next, we have action items. School business management, Neil?
Thank you, Seema. Several items this evening. The first one is change orders. So there's a recommendation to approve a change order for Archon Electric LLC to reduce the scope of work associated with the removal of the existing phone system, including all cabling back to the source, handsets, and patch cords. And the amount of that change order is a deduction of $40,000.
Can I have a motion to accept the change orders? Ben, second Judy. Any questions or comments? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0.
Next is a resolution to approve service agreements, and these are with Shalmont Central School District, SCO Family of Services / the Christopher School, and Springbrook, New York Incorporated.
Can I have a motion to accept the service agreements? Barb? Second Gloria. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0.
Next is a recommendation to approve the classroom rental and ancillary service agreement with Capital Region BOCES for the 2020-21 school year.
Can I have a motion to accept the service agreement? Rebecca, second Luciano. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0.
Next is we have a recommendation to approve a memorandum of agreement, and this is with respect to the provider share of federal IDEA flow-through funds, and it's with Capital District Beginnings.
Can I have a motion to approve the IDEA flow-through funds agreements? Barb? Second Judy. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0.
And then finally this evening, we have a resolution to approve corrected tax rolls for the 2020-21 school year. And there are 3 of them. They're relatively minor. There's 2 in the town of Bethlehem and 1 in the town of Gilboa.
Can I have a motion to approve the corrected tax roll? Ben? Second Kelly. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you, Neil. Dr. Wiles, I don't have anything.
I know, no action for me today.
Awesome. Board president action. So we have a set of policies here to vote on. This is the student harassment and bullying prevention, online distance and remote learning, in the homeless children policy. Can I have a motion to approve the policies? Ben? Second, Judy? Any questions or comments on these? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Next, we have board committee reports. We'll start with communications. Gloria?
We met October 14th, and a couple of things on our agenda. First of all, we think we have finished with the handbook. We gave you some pages tonight. You received the changes that were agreed to already, and there were no changes recommended for the second half of the section. So, and then you also have the Robert's Rules of Order section. So we should be good to go. So using it this year, referring to it when needed, and then we can, at the end of the year, if we see things that are not working or are not helpful to us, we can suggest changes to it. But let's use it and see how we feel about it. So everybody should have the information in front of them. I'd like to thank Deb Sim at the district office for doing this, and Ben for your help with the wording and a couple of the sections. Thanks. The committee also discussed our second item, which our goal we set was with involvement with the setting up of the Equity and Diversity Committee. The committee was charged by the board at the last meeting to put together a plan to reach out to the community and seek letters of interest for participation on a newly established Equity and Diversity Committee. That plan would include communication to faculty, staff, parents, students, community members, as well as a letter to the editor of the Altamont Enterprise. In order to draft the letter, the committee discussed what groups should be represented, as well as how many individuals total should be on the committee. I think we landed on a number of about 20 in the end of our discussion. The goal was to strike a balance between enough representation, but not so many as to have an unwieldy group. The committee also talked about the purpose, how we would state that in the letter, as well as the expectations for committee members, the kind of commitment it would involve. Marie graciously agreed to write and did a first draft of the letter, which you all received in the weekly update, and we're going to share it. We'd like this moment, take a moment now if there are any comments on that letter, anything you'd like to add. I think, Ben, you had something that you'd like to address, and maybe the rest of the committee could react to. This is our opportunity to kind of weigh in before the letter is finalized and sent out. Anything strike anyone as?
I have some extra copies here in case anyone needs to have it in front of them.
Ben, did you want to?
Yeah, the great letter. The only suggestion that I had, and I emailed Marie and Gloria about this, was a reference to anti-racism. I believe the letter went something like, the Equity Committee will provide updates on the progress the district's making towards our ultimate goal of being anti-racist, or something like that. And I don't know that it's completely clear that the goal of this committee is, I think that the word anti-racist is a little bit more politically charged than the words equity and inclusion. And I think that there's a big segment of the population that really doesn't see those two terms as synonymous. And so I think that, to include that word in the letter might give people the wrong idea, turn off some people that we don't want to turn off, or disincentivize to get involved.
I respectfully disagree, and think that the word should be in there, because I think when you have multiculturalism, diversity, equity, etc., it still doesn't address racism head on. And I don't know why we'd want to take out anti-racist, because clearly we don't want to have racist ideologies taught or supported in the group. So anti-racist would be the only solution to that. And I think that there's been many times where the other terms have been used to water down the work, or to kind of create segues for the anti-racist work to be done. And so I think having that language in there is really important, to have that word in there. Not to mention, we have a student group, and a faculty and staff group that already have those in their title. So it doesn't seem to align with that. Rebecca?
Seema, I totally agree with you. The definition of anti-racism is a person who opposes racism. So I'm not really sure how it's objectionable.
Oh, Kelly?
Yeah, I'm on the side of Rebecca and Seema. I don't think it's a bad word to use, and I don't think we've actually set out the actual goal of the group. We don't have to. I think the point of the initial group is to create the charter, right? We haven't set the specific verbiage of the goal.
We did in the letter.
Okay, so that.
Yeah, we did in the letter. Can you read that part?
So that's the.
Yeah. Not that particular one.
Do you want me to just read the whole letter?
Sure.
Okay.
Be helpful.
So, dear Guilderland community, I'm writing to invite you to submit a letter of interest to participate on a newly created standing committee of the Guilderland Board of Education that will focus on equity and diversity in our school community. The purpose of the Equity and Diversity Committee will be to provide direction, support, and oversight for the school district's work to become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive through its policies, practices, and programs. The committee will also play an active role in regularly communicating to the Guilderland community progress toward the ultimate goal of becoming anti-racist. Membership on the committee will include representatives from all stakeholder groups, including faculty and staff, students, parents, community members, as well as members of the Board of Education. Membership on the committee will be capped at 20. The committee will meet for the first time in early December 2020 and then monthly at dates and times convenient for the members. Those selected to serve will do so through June of 2022. A new round of committee member recruitment will be launched at that time. If you're interested in serving, please send a letter, et cetera, et cetera. And then your letter should provide a statement of your reasons why you would like to serve, as well as a description of your knowledge, expertise, and experience that would make you a strong contributor to this work. We're all very excited to engage in this critical work and look forward to working with members of our school community to make Guilderland a place where everyone feels safe and valued. We look forward to hearing from you.
You get a sense, I think, Kelly, right?
I think anti-racist is, if you're not trying to be anti-racist, then what are you trying to be? I agree with that.
Okay, any other comments? Is that it for communications? Or do you have another item? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so
I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, I just want to make sure everybody got an opportunity to weigh in. We also had set as one of our goals how we could be of help with this whole COVID communication and safety measures.
I'm sorry, Gloria. I didn't see that Blanca had her.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have something to say, Blanca? Oh, go ahead. I couldn't.
Go, Blanca.
Thank you. Right. So for me, it's cut and dry. This is one of those rare instances where you're either racist or you're anti-racist. I don't see how it could possibly be, we have to be one or the other. And I think that it would be a mistake to remove that term because that should be an expectation of the school district. And particularly after hearing from the parent tonight, she expressed a fear in trusting us with her child. And I think we need to take that very seriously. I would see us removing that as a slap in the face, frankly, and taking away from the overall mission. This is our chance as a district to take a stand. So I'm completely opposed to taking that out.
Thank you, Blanca.
Thanks, Blanca. Sorry we didn't see you there.
Any other comments before Gloria continues? Okay, sorry, Gloria, go ahead.
That's okay. So on our other item we talked about was the COVID communication and safety measures, how our committee could be of help. Amy Peratt, who is our BOCES communication specialist, reviewed some of the communications that the district is currently working on and related to the COVID-19. The Guilderland website also has a great deal of information, so we would kind of we don't want to just jump in and add more to all this. So we're going to take a step back, and our next meeting, which is going to be November 10th, we're going to take the time to look at the website, to look at what the district is doing already and how we can, further that or help it in any way, but we don't want to add more if it's not necessary. So we're going to take some time and see if we have any insight to offer after we've looked at those things. So November 10th, we'll be meeting again at 8 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. Next, business practices.
We met a couple of hours ago, and we had with us representatives from both Turner and CS Arch to explain the work that will be done, and for that, I'll turn to Neil, who will explain what they explained.
Thank you. Judy left out the part, she was re-elected chairperson, so dubious distinction, I suppose. We did approve the minutes from the April 23rd meeting as well. But to get to the capital project update, we did have our architectural firm, CS Arch, there, representatives from that firm, as well as from Turner Construction, which is our construction management firm on the project, and this is our $30.9 million capital project that we've embarked on. So we're in the first phase of that already, and some of the work that's occurred, we're almost done with a fuel island down at near the bus garage, so a full replacement of the fueling station for school buses and maintenance vehicles. Looks awesome. They did a great job, so we're excited to see that piece in place. We also had the additional window security film added at school buildings, so that piece of the project has been completed as well, and that was done before the start of school in September. So 2 good accomplishments out of the first phase. The other components of our first phase of construction really focus on the life safety components. So we are starting the process with our replacement of the phone system, fire alarm system, and PA system replacement. So we have materials on site. We've started doing a lot of cabling work that has to go on. That's been going on in various schools, second shift, and other times when students are not at school and we have access to the building. So that work is ongoing and will be ongoing for a while. That brings us to the second part of our process, the phase 2 part of the process, and we've been working toward that and the design for that as we've been working on phase 1. Last week, the State Education Department approved our submission for our phase 2 work, so that's good. So that was exactly a week ago. The plan right now is to go out to bid at the end of the month and to have bids come back on December 1st, and then we would be recommending award of those bids on December 8th. But we do have a couple of issues as we've worked through now the design components and have that nailed down. Now we have our construction management firm coming in behind our architects and costing out that work now that we have all of the detail associated with exactly what needs to be done in each of the areas. And we are finding that we are over budget at this point. So the magnitude of that is, estimate is $2.3 million. So it's $2 million. So it's significant in terms of an overall $31 million project. But we also have ways to evaluate that. And again, we don't know what the construction numbers are actually going to be. We're working with estimates at this time, but before we go out to bid, we want to have an opportunity when we think we might have some cost overruns to build some flexibility into that bid process. So really the discussion with our architects and construction management firms are what can we do to create that flexibility so that if we in fact find out we're in a situation where costs are coming in higher than projected, we can still proceed with our bid process in our work, but still have a mechanism to address that. And that's through what we call a deduct change order. Or, a deduct in the bid. So the areas where we're looking at being over right now are in this, the refurbishment of the science labs here at the high school, and then HVAC work, heating, ventilation, air conditioning work at 4 of our buildings. So what we're looking at is alternatives to compensate for that. Those are components that we feel are extremely important in this project and we want to maintain. Are there other areas that we can look at where we can ask the contractors to give us a price and say, if we don't do this work, how much would we save? And then we can look at those at bid time and take one, none, or all of them if we want to offset what we'll know at that point our known cost. So we've identified, or our architects and engineers, and working with Cliff Nooney, Director of Facilities, alternates totaling $2.3 million. The bulk of that is in roofing, $1.6 million, and that's across 4 schools, and pavement, $500,000, and then the tennis court here at the high school, which is about $200,000. So the plan that we have right now will be to take a look at, for example, the roofs, not doing all of the roof work we had envisioned in terms of replacement, but doing some what's called reseaming in certain areas, which will allow us, those are the major leak points, so if we can preserve those roofs, and we've done it in the past, by reseaming them where they're likely to leak, we'll get more life out of them. So that's one technique that we would use in this process. The other area in terms of pavement, we have pavement replacement for the areas around our maintenance facility and our bus garage. That is the area we would be looking at to scale back in terms of paving. And then finally, the tennis court here, the west in front of the high school on the west side, we had wanted to replace that in a whole. We were able to do that on the east side a little while ago with that tennis court, but we would hold on that and be back to making repairs for now until we saw how the numbers came out. I should also point out we do have $1 million in contingency and escalation funds built into the project. We're not looking to use that. We're looking to hold on to that. Again, when we design these projects, and actually we don't know how the bid environment's going to be, what that cost is going to be, so we want to hold on to that, have some options related to costs that we can take out and still preserve as much of the project, the functionality of the project as we can. And that's what we talked about this evening, that will allow the architects and engineers to go ahead with identifying those options we want to get pricing on. And then when we award the bids, we'll be able to sit down and evaluate the entire cost of what we've seen compared to our budget and make the best decisions we can from the options that we have. So I have Mr. Nooney here. If anybody has any specific questions they'd like to ask at this point.
I just have one question, Neil. Oh, Blanca too? Okay. Go ahead, Blanca. You can go. I'll go after. You want me to go ahead? Okay. I just have a question, Neil, about does a roofing include Westmere? Because I know it always has like issues with.
No, but I don't know if you want to address that, Cliff.
No,
yeah. It's Altamont, Pine Bush.
No, it's not. We're looking at Altamont, Pine Bush, Barnwood, and
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Blanca.
I just have a general concern. As we know, this was a big issue. It was a hot issue in the town, and I think it's going to be pretty ugly if we don't deliver everything we said we were going to deliver to parents who, had to vote in favor of this. So I just have this general concern that we asked for more money and we may not deliver everything we said we were going to. Does that mean I have the answer? Not necessarily, but I want to put that out there.
Okay, I think what we are is we're delivering the project as intended. It may not, we really didn't talk about, roof preservation. We still have a plan to do that. It may be done in a different way than full replacement. But we've had situations in the past, and this has occurred because we don't have a full architectural review before we go out and ask for financing, because that would be a tremendous amount of money for schools to pay up front and maybe not get any value. So we do have this process where we have limited opportunities to really get into our buildings and really dig into what it would cost, looking at a full design. So we don't have full designs when we go in. So we always have this potential when we go through this process to, now that we're able to get in and do a full design and actually start looking at what current bid prices are, what that comes out to be. So we have been in this situation before. Sometimes it's been on the good end where we have more money than we thought. Sometimes we have less, and we have done this process before of having to look at alternates in both directions to make sure that we can bring in the project on time. Certainly we would prefer a better solution than what we have right now, but we're also hearing the bid environment's getting much better. contractors seem to be not getting some of the work that they counted on, and maybe a lot of the municipal work that's now either the state or local governments are not doing. And we expect to have a very good bidding environment, we're being told, for this upcoming project. So hopefully that will play in our favor as well.
I just, the things that stood out to me when you were speaking were, re-seaming the roof or fixing the roof instead of replacing it and not doing tennis courts. And so those screen safety concerns to me, if not done soon. So just putting that out there.
Okay. And we have not set a time for our next meeting.
Thanks, Judy. Next, policy. Barb?
We have a meeting coming up, which I think is incorrectly posted on the website. Marie, do you have?
I thought it was tomorrow.
At 4.
Everybody has it for the tomorrow? All right.
4
Tomorrow
o'clock
then at
tomorrow.
4. Okay.
And last audit, Ben?
We're meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. Virtually.
Okay. Right. And public comment number 2. Do we have any more emails, Linda? No? Okay, thank you. Last, board issues, ideas, and sharing. Does anybody have anything to share? Gloria?
Demian, can you help me out with the name of the English teacher? I think his name's Tom, but I don't remember his last name, that created that video we all got.
Oh, Tom Pieko.
Tom Pieko.
If you didn't get a chance to watch it, the Corona-naissance.
Renaissance, yeah.
Renaissance. It was really wonderfully done. I just have to say, the staff that contributed really were inspiring, how they used their time during the very difficult days to come up with such creative ways of expanding their own learning and their own dreams, and it was really rather inspiring. So thank you to Tom for doing that. Also, I just wanted to ask, we had down public input for the budget development for October 20th on our calendar, and also the program report, State of Our Schools. Did we move that?
We pushed that back so we could get our input from the
So did we schedule it somewhere?
The program report will be the 10th.
November 10th?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the public input? Are we going to be able to, get word out so that people get us some comments?
Well, we're in such an unusual year.
I know. But I want people to feel
I'm wondering
how to do that. Maybe it'll come out in the thought exchange. I don't know, but I think if we're not specifically send out an SNN or whatever we do, but to give people an opportunity by this November 10th to give us their thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we did miss
Budget.
it for tonight for sure, but I think it's because
Yeah.
I don't know what people would say almost.
I don't know, but at least I'm going to ask them.
Yeah, absolutely.
To see what they say.
I mean, I wouldn't want it, though, to coincide with the other survey about the next.
No, it's just that usually we have, it's part of our calendar for the budget development,
Yeah,
that
no,
public input.
no, I
It's the
agree.
first thing. So somehow we have to just ask for it.
Yeah.
If anybody has, thoughts about it.
I'd be really curious if someone has some good thoughts about how
hope
to do
so.
it this year.
And the other thing I wanted to say was, we did not, I know we read all the public comments, and is there a way that somehow they get forwarded to where they need to? Normally you say something like that, like, would so-and-so follow up with this? There might
Yeah, I
be
was
some
gonna
that we want to
mention-
make sure
Yep.
that are followed up. The one from the high school, of course, those, we got to make sure they get a letter of invite to our committee. I'm
Yes.
sure they'll send a representative, but,
Yeah, the other two, the parents that contact, the few
Yes.
parents that contact, yeah, we will follow
yeah,
up.
and the parent that called in, what was her name, Kat?
Mrs. Lewis.
Mrs. Lewis, she would probably, would love a letter. I mean, hopefully she's still listening to get the letter to invite her to the committee.
Do you have her email address, Marie? Because I didn't hear from her. directly.
I actually might. I have
Okay.
communicated with her in the past,
Okay.
so I think I might. Let me just look here since I've got it open.
Yeah, there was a student that, only recently reached out to me asking about if there was going to be a committee or some kind of work that looked at inclusion in the online environment. And so I thought inviting the student to submit a letter.
Yeah.
I think that would probably fall in the same category.
Yeah, we had
As a
some people
committee.
last year.
Right, people who wrote to
Former
us.
students who wrote to us, and
Yeah. Some community members or
and some community
parents.
members. I remember Elizabeth Floyd wrote a letter with some other people asking about our efforts.
Yeah, so we'll follow up with the public comments. Any other issues, ideas, or sharing? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Kelly, second. Barb? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, Rebecca.
Night.
Good night, Blanca.
Surprised my wall wasn't mentioned. Get out.